Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this month's Solutions of Change monthly mental health moments. This month, we're talking about the crossroads between mental and physical well being. Now, I know we hear a lot about the importance of our physical health. We hear from parents, educators, and our medical professionals. However, sometimes we don't hear how our mental health impacts our physical health and vice versa. So, this month, we're talking specifically about that. Let's get started. So the items on the screen might look familiar. There's something that we hear a lot about the overall well-being of an individual. We talk about health in the sense of diet and exercise and what a healthy person looks like. But that isn't the only thing that's incorporated into well-being. It's important that we recognize that yes, these things are important, but there are additional opportunities to assess our well-being and to create strategies to ensure our overall health. In order to explore options and new strategies on well being, it's important that we recognize some of the similarities and differences between mental and physical health. Mental health consists of support and connection, rest, coping, treatment, hope, and resilience. When we think about physical health, we've been told, of course, about diet and exercise, but it's also important that we recognize the need for regular doctor's visits, for sleep, and then physical touch and sexual needs. Now, we may not have all the information on how to incorporate these things into our well being, but the first step is knowing that they are a part of our overall well being. There are additional considerations when we talk about the crossroads between mental and physical well being that sometimes we don't have conversations about, but we actually really should. The first one is genetics. When we talk about genetics, we're talking about the ability for conditions and disorders to be passed down from one generation to the next. And so when we have conversations about what our family medical and mental health makeup is, it prepares us in a way that allows us to recognize the symptoms of a condition or a disorder, to receive treatment earlier, and then also have more successful outcomes when it comes to the treatment of medical and mental health concerns. Motivation. And sometimes we think of motivation as the thing that gets us out of bed in the morning. However, we also need motivation when it comes to taking care of our mental and physical health. And so sometimes people's motivation could be living a long life, being able to see their children and grandchildren and maybe great grandchildren grow up. It's also important that we recognize that sometimes motivation can be for smaller goals. And say a smaller goal would be, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. It's always the 5 pounds, right? So knowing that we're motivated to lose that 5 pounds needs a backup for that goal. So if that goal is just the 5 pounds, then we can say within the next 30 days, I'm going to work really hard to lose these 5 pounds. That leads into concentration and planning. And so we can't just say that we have a goal and expect that that goal is going to come to fruition. We have to have some type of concentration that shows that we have a plan moving forward. And so being able to do some research on the best ways to lose 5 pounds and being able to incorporate that plan into our daily functionality gives us the opportunity to make that plan a success. Having a support system is very important when it comes to the success of our mental and physical well being. Sometimes a support system is a friend or a family member, but it can also be a therapist or a support group. So, recognizing that when we have difficulties reaching our goals, having our support system that helps align us, allows us to talk about the pitfalls and the successes that we have, makes us more likely to reach that goal in a successful manner. Did you know that mental health concerns can cause physical ailments? It's a good question. If you don't realize that mental health concerns can result in a physical ailment, something to take into consideration is that anxiety can cause chest pain, headache, and ongoing stomach upset. Depression can result in body aches and pain that may not respond to medication. So sometimes when we're in a cycle of pain or we have an ailment that we can't put our finger on the root of, we need to look into our mental health to discover if there's something going on mentally that is impacting us physically. Some other things that mental health can impact on your body are headaches, fatigue, digestive issues, insomnia, decreased focus, and restlessness. It's important that we start to think about the way that our mental health impacts our physical health so that we can address the concerns appropriately. If you are having a mental health concern and you're constantly going to your regular medical doctor, sometimes they won't recognize that there's a connection between your mental health and what ails you. It is also important for us to do mental health checkups so we understand where we are mentally and how it's impacting us physically. There are a lot of self-help activities that we can do to encourage our overall well-being. Some of them we've heard of already, like eating well and exercising, making sure that we get enough sleep. But additionally, taking into consideration relaxation techniques. What are we doing for ourselves to help us relax and release some of the stressors that we deal with on a daily basis as human beings? So one of the things that people can do, and this is just a suggestion, is that having a relaxation technique like taking a hot shower at the end of every day or after you get off of work so that you know that you can transition effectively into what your family life looks like. Or maybe spending time doing your favorite thing. It might be painting, it might be knitting, it might be one of many things, but it also gives you a chance to step away from some of the stressors and have some peace. Peace is super important and it's a good part of relaxation. Good mental practices include assessing ourselves, right? Taking time to say, something doesn't feel right. I've been consistently sad for the last 7 or 8 days, and that's not like me. Maybe there's something going on mentally that I need to address. Or I haven't been able to sleep consistently for weeks at a time. When we recognize that sleep impacts our ability to function, then we start to pay more attention to our sleep patterns and how they impact us and what impacts our sleep patterns. Help seeking behaviors. As always, help seeking behaviors are some of the most important things that we can do for our overall well being. And it is comparable to recognizing that you hurt yourself and going to a doctor to receive care for whatever that pain is. So if you fall down and break your toe, you're more likely to go and see a doctor because there's something pressing that says, my toe is broken, I need some type of medical help. But sometimes we get used to patterns when it comes to our mental health. So again, not sleeping or finding ourselves in conflict with others, or one of many things that we recognize is ongoing and bothers us, but we haven't created a space to recognize that it's something that we can change. So help seeking behaviors can encourage us not only to assess ourselves and find out if there's something that needs to be addressed, but also do the work that resolves the issues that we have so that we can be overall healthier in our journey. Creating a wellness plan is a good way to assess our lifestyle and make changes that help us become, again, more healthy. So, a wellness plan is a plan of action focused on achieving personal wellness goals. These plans are multidimensional, composed of unique individual needs. So, if I say that I want a healthy lifestyle, it's important for me to assess what's important to me as a part of a healthy lifestyle. And so, maybe making time to connect with others is important to me. Mental attitudes when it comes to how I want to manage my relationships and the way that I think and feel on a daily basis. Creating goals, whether those are personal goals, relationship goals, professional goals. These are all parts of wellness plans. It's not just about the diet and exercise part and making sure that we drink more water because we've been told to do so. It's also about assessing what we need to function in all levels of our life. One of the most important things that we can do when creating a wellness plan is to write it down. When we write it down, it becomes more real. It becomes something that we can actually look at and see and check off when we've completed a goal. Creating a wellness plan can not only help us with a plan as a guide through our journey to becoming more overall healthy, but it also helps us access new information about things that may be missing in our wellness journey. And so, thinking of a healthy lifestyle for the individual is a good way to start off with a wellness plan. The phrase self care comes up a lot nowadays. And sometimes self care can sound like something that you do that's big, like a vacation or taking time off from work. But we want to talk about self care in the way that we understand that there's ways to incorporate self care into a daily basis. There are 8 areas of interest when we talk about self care, and we want to make sure that we understand what each of those areas of interest means. In self care for a physical life, for our physical health, we want to make sure that we understand the importance of moving our bodies. That's exercise. Our health care, checking in with our doctors, nutrition, sleep, rest, physical touch, and sexual needs. And sometimes sexual needs can be a little taboo and we don't like to have those conversations. But it's important that we're talking about not only our sexual needs, ideas of consent, sexual safety, and any other thoughts that we have surrounding intimacy and sex. Another thing is when we're talking about self care is our psychological self care. Learning new things can be a part of psychological self care. Learning how to be a critical thinker, meaning that we're thinking things through in a way that helps us assess the consequences of our actions. Intrinsic motivation. So, again, we had a little bit of a discussion about what motivation was earlier, but making sure that that's a part of our daily life can be an important part of our psychological self care. Creativity. When we talk about creativity, it really does depend on the person. Not everybody feels like they're creative in a way, but having a space where you can do something that allows you to express yourself is a part of creativity. Self exploration, doing self assessment is important. And whether that is talking about our childhood or our adulthood, about things that we like or dislike, it's important that we're getting in touch with ourselves so we know how to manage our lives on a daily basis. And then therapy. So, therapy can sometimes feel taboo. A lot of times we don't even like to say the phrase mental health. But therapy can be an important part of our psychological self care. When we recognize that there's something that is causing us or limiting our function, then maybe it's a good time for us to get with a professional and have conversations about changes that we can make. We can talk about things that have happened in our past, things that are happening in our present, and what we want our future to look like. Again, therapy can be a very important part of our psychological self care. Now, emotional self care is a little bit different. When we talk about emotional self care, we talk about things like emotional intelligence, meaning that we can recognize, control, and express our emotions in an effective way. We talk about managing stress, which looks different for every person. So maybe we have the same type of stressors, but the way that we choose to manage them are very different based on what our individual preference is. Self compassion. Self compassion is our ability to take it easier on ourselves, to be kind to ourselves, to understand that we are human beings and human beings make mistakes, and hopefully we have the opportunity to make changes that allow us to be more of the type of person that we want to be. It doesn't mean that we have to be extremely critical of ourselves when we make a mistake. It's okay to learn the lesson from a mistake, but holding on to it in a way that causes us negative energy or causes us to feel depressed or downtrodden doesn't help us on our journey to well being. And then empathy. Empathy just means that we understand that everybody is going through something or gone through something or will go through something. And being empathetic allows us to recognize that we're all human beings trying to figure it out. It also clears a space for us to be emotionally healthy. Other areas of interest when it comes to self care include social self care. Social self care is the way that we connect with others, and it gives us that sense of belonging. So, we know the last 18 months has taught us all a lot about the disconnect when it comes to social self care. It's important that we assess ourselves and make a determination if something is missing when it comes to our social life. And if there is, creating new ways to connect with people is always a good strategy to maintain your social self care when it comes to your well being. Financial self-care is also very important. Financial self-care is not something that we spend a lot of time talking about, and it feels like we really should. Having a good relationship, a conscious relationship with your finances is something that is important to functionality. When we think about the impact that money has on our lives in general, maybe the question is, what do we want our money to do for us? And what can we see ourselves doing with our money in the future? Having a good sense of our financial status can help us with the process of incorporating that financial self-care. Spiritual self-care is another area of interest when we talk about self-care in general. Exploring belief and value systems can greatly impact the way that we manage our lives and how we are motivated to do things. Developing spiritual awareness doesn't mean that we ascribe to a specific religion, but it does mean that we're making space to do that exploration in a way that allows us to open ourselves for the positive impact that a spiritual life can have on us. Our professional life can impact many parts of our lives in general. And so when we think about some of the things that we see when it comes to professional stress, if you are unhappy with your work, if you are overworked or overwhelmed, a lot of times that spills over into the way that we care for ourselves, the way we manage our relationships, and sometimes impacts our family life. And so when we look at our professional self-care, we want to consider some of the things that can help us in those areas. One of the things is creating clear professional goals. When we create clear professional goals, it allows us to say, where am I now and where do I want to be in the future? So the steps that we take professionally lead us towards those specific goals. Additionally, creating professional boundaries can be important. Say that you are a type of person that has a family. You're married, you have children, and maybe you have the additional responsibility of taking care of your parent in your home. So a clear professional boundary could be the idea that you know that you can't work past 5 o'clock, because if you do, then that creates issues on the personal side when you have to go home and assess everyone's needs and maybe take care of your sick family member. So creating those boundaries allow us to say, this is my time that I will utilize professionally. And I also make time for my individual self-care, for my family life, and all of the things that are included in our overall well-being. Environmental self-care is important in the way that we assess the environments that we're in. So environmental self-care can look like having a clean home or workspace, something that makes you comfortable and makes you feel productive and feel like you are in line with what you want your life to look like. Transportation, making sure that we have transportation to and from the places that we need to go so that we can effectively manage our schedules, is another part of environmental self-care. The technology we use. And so a lot of people will say that they find themselves on something like TikTok, right? And somebody sends you one video, and then an hour later, you're still on TikTok just watching the rabbit hole of videos that come up. So when we're managing our time and we're thinking about our environmental self-care, when we think about that technology and the impact that it has on our ability to function, sometimes we need to assess and say, am I spending too much time connected to technology? When we think about environmental self-care as a whole, we think about all the environments that we find ourselves in. And so outside of the home could be that you think about waste management and minimalizing your carbon footprint when it comes to the environment as a whole. Inside the home, it may just be creating spaces where you feel comfortable and clean and like things are functioning in a specific way. So all of these areas of interest include ways to manage our self-care, but they also can be included as parts of our wellness plan. When we incorporate ideas from each of these areas into our wellness plan, that means that we're taking a holistic approach to what we need as individuals to be overall healthy, but also to manage our well-being. Now that we've explored the crossroads between mental and physical well-being, the question is, what's next? So the first thing that we can do is ask ourselves, are we taking care of our physical and mental well-being? Are there areas in which we can make progressive improvement? It's important that we collaborate with our mental health and medical professionals to ensure that we are addressing our overall needs. And then assessing ourselves for additional care needs means that we're making that self-assessment that says, okay, maybe it's time to seek help. Remember, help-seeking behaviors are some of the most important things that we can do for ourselves when it comes to managing not only our mental, but also our medical well-being. Don't forget to register for our Solutions of Change monthly mental health moments open group forum at the end of the month. This month we'll be meeting on July the 29th from 6 to 7 p.m. and we'll continue the conversation about the crossroads between our mental and physical well-being. We look forward to seeing you.